I banged on the bathroom door until my hands hurt. My voice cracked from shouting, but no one came. The four walls pressed closer each second, and I could feel the cold tiles under my bare feet like ice. I was locked inside my own son's bathroom, held prisoner by the boy I had carried in my womb, fed with my hands, and protected all his life. For 3 days I had been trapped, with only tap water to keep me alive. My stomach cried for food, my knees trembled from weakness, and my heart broke from betrayal. "David," I screamed, my voice raw. "Please let me out. I'm your mother." But silence answered me. Silence so heavy it sat on my chest like a stone. And that was when I swore, if I ever left that bathroom alive, I would never forgive him. I would do something that would tear him apart the same way he had torn me. And I did. I sold his house. His precious house. The one thing he cared for more than me. But before you judge me, let me tell you how we got here. Because no one wakes up one day and locks their mother in the bathroom. And no mother sells her son's house without a storm of pain leading up to it. It all started months earlier, when David first began to change. At first, it was the little things. He would come home late without saying where he had been. He started raising his voice when talking to me, something he had never done before. I thought it was stress, maybe from work. I told myself he is tired. He is worried. He will come around. But instead of getting better, it got worse. One evening, I cooked his favorite meal, roast chicken with potatoes. I set the table nicely, even lit a candle like I used to when he was younger. When David walked in, I smiled and said, "Welcome home, son. I made something special for you." He looked at the food, then at me, and said coldly, "Why are you always in my business? Don't you have anything else to do?" My smile froze on my face. "David, I just want it." "I don't need this," he snapped, throwing his briefcase on the sofa. "Stop acting like I'm still a child." That night, I cried quietly in my room. I pressed my pillow to my face so he wouldn't hear. My boy, the same boy who once clung to my dress on his first day of school, now looked at me like I was a burden. But I still didn't give up. The lows continued. Some days he wouldn't talk to me at all, walking around the house like I was invisible. Other days, his anger exploded over the smallest things. A broken plate, a misplaced sock, even the way I coughed too loudly. And then the extreme moments came. One afternoon, I found a letter on the kitchen counter. It was from the bank. David had taken a loan, a very large one. I didn't know for what, and when I asked, he exploded. "Why are you reading my letters?" he shouted, snatching it from my hand. "I was just cleaning and You always have excuses." His face was red, his eyes burning. "Stay out of my life or you'll regret it." Those words cut me deeper than any knife. From that day, I felt fear creeping into my bones. My own son's anger frightened me. Still I stayed. I told myself, this is my child. I cannot abandon him. But I didn't know then what he was truly capable of. Weeks later, it happened. It was a Saturday morning. I was washing my clothes in the laundry room when David walked in. His face dark. "We need to talk," he said. I dried my hands and followed him. But instead of talking, he suddenly pushed me into the bathroom and slammed the door. Before I could react, the lock clicked. "David, what are you doing?" I cried, pounding the door. "You'll stay there until you learn to mind your business," he said coldly. His footsteps faded away. At first, I thought it was a joke. A cruel one, but still a joke. I laughed nervously and said, "All right, son. You've made your point. Open the door now." But he didn't. Hours passed. The air grew heavy. Hunger clawed at my belly. Darkness filled the room when night came, and still, no one came. By the second day, my voice was gone from shouting. My legs shook whenever I stood. I prayed, cried, begged, but no answer came. And then on the third day, I made a decision. If I lived to walk out of that bathroom, I would not stay silent. I would not forgive. I would strike back in a way he would never forget. That was the moment the mother in me died. And the woman who had been betrayed was born. Because when I finally escaped, I went straight to the one thing that meant the world to him, his house. And I sold it. But you must be wondering, how did I get out of that bathroom alive? That, my dear, is another story. The bathroom smelled of damp soap and sweat. My body ached from sitting on the cold tiles. My lips were dry, and my throat burned from thirst, though the tap water had kept me alive. My head spun, and sometimes I thought I was dreaming. But then I heard something that made me freeze. A faint knock. At first, I thought it was my mind playing tricks. I pressed my ear to the door. The knock came again, soft but real. "Grandma," a little voice whispered. My heart jumped. It was Lily, my neighbor's 6-year-old daughter. She often came over to play in our garden, and she loved following me around like a little shadow. "Lily," I whispered back, my voice weak. "Sweetheart, listen to me carefully. I'm locked inside. Can you hear me?" "Yes," she said. "Why are you in there?" "David locked me in," I whispered, tears rolling down my face. "Please, can you help me? Go and call your mother. Tell her I need help." There was silence, then tiny footsteps running away. Minutes later, I heard banging at the front door and a woman's voice shouting, "David, open up. Where is your mother?" It was Mrs. Green, Lily's mother. I held my breath, praying. David didn't answer. Then the banging grew louder. "If you don't open this door, I'm calling the police," she shouted. Finally, after what felt like forever, I heard keys turning. The front door opened. Voices filled the house. David sounded angry, but Mrs. Green was shouting louder. Then the bathroom door burst open. Bright light blinded me, and I stumbled forward. Mrs. Green caught me before I fell. "Oh my God," she gasped. "What did he do to you?" I looked at my son. His face was stone, his eyes cold as ice. He didn't even look sorry. That moment, something inside me snapped. I was free, but I was not the same. Mrs. Green took me to her house and gave me food and water. She wanted to call the police right away. But I stopped her. "No," I said, shaking my head. "Not yet. Let me handle this my way." I knew the law could punish him, but I wanted something deeper, something that would teach him the weight of what he had done. For days, I stayed with Mrs. Green while David pretended nothing had happened. He didn't come to check on me. He didn't apologize. Instead, he told neighbors I had fallen sick and needed rest. Lies rolled off his tongue so easily. But I was quiet, watching, waiting. One night when I couldn't sleep, I walked back to the house alone. I stood outside, staring at the walls that had once been filled with laughter, family dinners, and birthday candles. Now it was just a cage of betrayal. And then it struck me, the house. The house was everything to David. He had worked for it, bragged about it, and poured all his money into it. More than me, more than family, the house was his pride. If I wanted to wound him the way he had wounded me, I had to take what he loved most. That was when the plan formed in my heart. I would sell the house. But how? I had no documents. No keys. No authority. Or so I thought. Until one morning, while David was at work, I went inside to gather my things. I opened his drawer, and there it was, the deed to the house. And my name was on it too. Years ago, David had begged me to co-sign the papers. He needed me to stand as guarantor for his loan. He had promised, "Don't worry, Mom. This is our home. Yours as much as mine." Now those very words became my weapon. Holding that paper, I knew I had the power to sell. Still, I hesitated. My heart warred with itself. "He is my son," one voice whispered. "A mother does not destroy her child's home." But another voice, louder, stronger, roared back. "And a son does not lock his mother in a bathroom like a prisoner." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the paper, torn between love and revenge. The next morning, I made my choice. I walked to the lawyer's office and placed the deed on his desk. "I want to sell," I said firmly. The lawyer raised his brows. "Are you sure, ma'am?" "Yes," I whispered, my voice trembling. "I am sure." And that decision set everything in motion. The for sale sign went up quietly. I kept everything secret, moving carefully step by step. But secrets don't stay hidden forever. One evening, as I returned from the lawyer's office, I opened the front gate and froze. David was standing there, holding the for sale sign in his hands, his face twisted with rage. "Mother," he hissed, his voice low and dangerous. "What are you trying to do?" The air grew heavy. My heart pounded. I had been discovered. And in that moment I knew, the war between mother and son had truly begun. David's eyes burned into me like fire. He gripped the for sale sign so tightly I thought it would snap in two. The veins on his neck bulged, and his chest rose and fell like a man ready for battle. "What is this?" he growled, shaking the sign in my face. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "It's what you deserve." His eyes widened in shock, then narrowed into slits. "You dare sell my house?" "Our house," I corrected, lifting my chin. "Do you remember, David? You begged me to sign the deed with you. My name is there. This house is as much mine as it is yours." His jaw clenched so tightly I thought his teeth would crack. "You wouldn't dare." "I already did," I whispered. For a moment, silence filled the air. Only the sound of crickets outside. Then David exploded. He slammed the sign against the wall, splinters flying. "You ungrateful woman," he shouted. "After everything I've done for you." "Everything you've done?" I stepped closer, trembling but refusing to step back. "You locked me in a bathroom for 3 days without food. You treated me like trash in my own home. And you think you can talk about what you've done for me?" His face twisted in fury, but for a split second I saw something else. Guilt, fear, shame. Then it was gone, buried under rage. "You're making a mistake," he warned, his voice low now, almost like a growl. "A mistake you'll regret." I didn't answer. I turned away and began walking inside. My hands shook, my heart raced, but I didn't let him see my fear. That night was long. I locked my door, afraid of what he might do. Every creak of the floorboards made me sit up in bed listening. At one point, I thought I heard him pacing in the hallway. I clutched the deed tightly in my hands and prayed for strength. The next morning, David was gone. His room empty. His car missing. For 2 days, I didn't see him. I thought maybe, just maybe, he had calmed down. But on the third night, I was woken by a crash. Glass shattering. I jumped from my bed and ran to the living room. My heart dropped. The windows were smashed. Drawers ripped open. Papers scattered across the floor. And in the middle of the chaos stood David, wild-eyed, his hair messy, his shirt untucked. In his hand he held a bottle, half empty, reeking of alcohol. "Where is it?" he demanded, his voice hoarse. "Where is what?" I whispered, already knowing. "The deed," he roared, overturning the table. "Where did you hide it?" My chest tightened with fear. He had never looked like this before. This wasn't my son. It was a stranger wearing his face. "David, stop this madness." I cried. "Look at yourself." But he didn't stop. He threw chairs, tore through drawers, his breathing heavy like a mad animal. I backed away slowly, clutching the deed hidden under my pillow in my room. My legs shook, but I forced myself to speak. "David," I said softly, "you need help. Please, let's talk. We can fix this." For a moment he froze. His eyes softened, almost like he was hearing me. I thought I saw my son again. Then suddenly, he smashed the bottle against the wall, glass flying everywhere. "I'll burn this whole house before I let you take it from me," he shouted. The words struck me like lightning. My knees weakened. He meant it. And before I could move, he staggered to the kitchen, yanked open a drawer, and pulled out a box of matches. The smell of alcohol, the broken glass, the rage in his eyes, everything screamed danger. My son was about to set the house on fire, with both of us inside. The smell of smoke filled the room before the flame even touched the curtains. It moved like a small animal, quick and hungry, and my throat closed with fear. I watched David strike the match with hands that trembled more from anger than from fear. He held the tiny light up, like a judge about to pass sentence. "Stop, David," I screamed. My voice was raw and small against his roar. "Please don't do this. Think about what you're doing." He stared at me as if I were a stranger. His face was pale and hard, but his eyes burned with something I could not name. The match hissed when he brought it near the curtain. The cotton caught, and then the flame slid up like it had legs. "No." I lunged forward, but he pushed me away with a force that sent me stumbling against the sofa. The heat touched my cheek, and I smelled the sharp, bitter smoke of burning fabric. Panic pushed through me like cold water. Outside, the night was still. Inside, the house had become a place of danger. The curtains were flames now, and the fire was spreading toward the bookshelf, toward the curtains by the window, toward things that had memories tied to them. Photos of birthdays, recipes written on torn paper, my knitting basket with half-finished scarves. I grabbed anything I could. A wet towel that was on a chair, a pan, even a small pillow. I threw them at the growing blaze, but the fire laughed at my efforts and pushed back. It was too fast. "David!" I shouted again, but he did not come to me. He stood in the middle of the room, breathing hard like a man who had walked to the edge of a cliff and would not step back. My hands shook so much I could barely hold the towel. The smoke made my eyes sting and my head swim. I wanted to call for help, but my phone was downstairs on the kitchen counter. The stairs had become like a cliff in front of me. Think, I told myself. I dropped to my knees and crawled to the hallway where there was a small fire extinguisher. I had never used it before. My palms were slick on the metal. I pulled the pin with my teeth and aimed at the base of the flames. The extinguisher coughed and sprayed white cold foam that smelled like winter. The fire fought back, but slowly it began to die at the edges. The front door banged open. Light and voices rushed in. Mrs. Green stood there with her hand on the phone, tears on her face. Behind her were neighbors, Mr. Kofi with his heavy boots, young Sam who worked at the grocery, and two policemen whose uniforms were dark in the light. "Get everyone out," one of the policemen shouted. "Now." David's face changed in a blink. The fierce look faded and something like fear came in. He looked at the flames, then at me, and his chest sank. For the first time that night I saw a broken boy, not a raging man. He stepped forward as if to reach me, then faltered and turned his face away. I coughed and wheezed, but I kept spraying foam where the fire flared highest. The policeman grabbed the other extinguisher and aimed at the curtains. Together we pushed the orange away until the smoke rolled out like a tide and the flames went down to angry red embers. We were safe for now, but the house had been hurt. The curtains were black and melted. The bookshelf was charred at the bottom. The air tasted like burnt bread and lost things. I could see my life in the soot. Photo frames blackened, the vase with a crack, the patch of wallpaper where David and I had painted a tree years ago. The policeman took my statement while Mr. Kofi wrapped me in a blanket. Mrs. Green sat with David on the broken sofa and cried like the rain. I could hear the shaking in his voice when he tried to speak. He kept saying, "I didn't mean to." And then he could not finish the thought. "There will be a report," the officer said quietly. "We have to ask questions about intent, about mental state." He spoke like the grown-ups do when the world breaks. I nodded because what else could I do? Neighbors whispered. Some looked at me with pity, some with shock. I had always been the warm one, the one who baked bread for new neighbors, the one who watered the flowers next door. Now I had a burnt house and a son who had almost taken everything in a fit of rage. Hours passed in a blur. Fire trucks came, sirens quiet now as they left. The policemen went through rooms with flashlights. The smell of smoke stayed, stubborn as grief. When the house was mostly quiet, David and I were left alone in what used to be our living room. He sat forward, elbows on his knees, and cried in a way I had never heard since he was a boy, raw and unsure. I walked to him slowly. My legs felt tired as if all the energy had been used up. "David," I said softly, and he looked up with wet eyes that were both young and old. "Why did you do this? Tell me, please." He swallowed and looked at the floor. "I thought if I lost everything, then I could start over," he whispered. "I thought I could make you understand, or make it stop hurting me. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't know it would go this far." His voice was small. It was the voice of the child who had once asked for bedtime stories. I wanted to gather him in my arms and hold him. But the memory of being trapped in that bathroom was a lock inside my chest. I could not forget so easily. "You locked me in," I said, and the words came out like stones. 3 days. No food. No merci. You say you didn't mean to hurt me? You did, David. You did. He covered his face with his hands and sobbed. I was mad at the world. I didn't think. I was selfish. I'm sorry, Mama. I am so sorry. We sat like that for a long time, two broken people with the same blood. Outside, the night watched and did not judge. Inside, the house hummed with the memory of flames. But the story was not over. The policeman had questions, and the lawyer who handled the sale of the house would call in the morning. There were words like arson and assault that floated in the air like dust. Just when I thought things could not get worse, a loud knock came at the door. I opened it a crack and found Mr. Kofi standing there, his face pale as cloth. Behind him walked a tall man in a dark suit I did not know. The man held a folder clutched to his chest. "Madam," the man said in a voice that smelled of papers and business. "I am here on behalf of the bank. We received notice of a sale notice for this property. We need to speak with you about the deed." My throat closed. The deed, the paper that had seemed like a shield, suddenly felt like a match in a dark room. The man's eyes were sharp. He opened his folder slowly and laid out a copy of a document on the table. "You signed this as co-owner," he said. "But the bank says the loan is in arrears. There are unpaid sums. The sale cannot proceed until the debts are settled." I felt the ground move under my feet. For a moment the room spun. I had sold the house in a moment of anger, but I had not thought of the debt. I had not thought of how fragile everything was, how one action could open a locked box of problems. David looked at me with dread, as if the papers in the folder were knives ready to fall. The man in the suit continued in his calm way. "There will be an investigation. And until then the house is frozen, no sale, no transfer, no changes." I wanted to breathe, to be relieved, but the relief did not come clean. Instead, something heavier pressed down. Now there would be more people involved: lawyers, bank officers, policemen. My private pain would be dragged into rooms full of strangers. And worse, whatever the bank decided could break David even more. The man in the suit closed his folder and looked at me with a softness that did not match his formal voice. "I'm sorry for what happened tonight," he said. "But there are rules." As he left, I watched the tail of his coat disappear into the night. The house felt smaller, trapped by rules and by smoke. I thought of the deed I had signed, the promise I had made thinking I was helping my child, and of how promises can turn into chains when the world shifts. I sat back down and put my head in my hands. The lesson I had wanted to give my son had become a lesson I had to learn too. You cannot undo one hurt without thinking of the next. You cannot break things without knowing what else will fall. Outside, sirens screamed softly in the distance as the world kept turning. Inside, the house held its breath. And then, before I had time to gather my scattered thoughts, my phone vibrated on the table. The screen lit with a single word from an unknown number. "We saw everything. We filmed it all." My heart stopped. I did not know who had sent it. I did not know what they had filmed. The words were simple and cold. Someone had watched us while the fire burned. Someone had a camera. They had proof. I looked up, and the house felt empty and watched at the same time. Like a stage after the actors have left but the audience still sits waiting. The quiet between the walls hummed with the knowledge that what happened tonight would not stay hidden. A new kind of fear rose in me. One that belonged not just to the flames but to the truth that now had legs and breath. Who had the video? What would they do with it? Would it show me as the monster who sold her son's home? Or as the mother who had been locked away? Would it show the truth? Or would it twist it into something darker? The phone buzzed again, and the screen flashed the name of the sender. It was a number I didn't know. My hands trembled as I reached for it. And at that exact moment, a loud crash came from the bedroom upstairs. Something heavy had fallen. Or been thrown. I froze. The house seemed to hold its breath with me. Then a sound like wood breaking echoed down the stairs. Someone was upstairs. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. I looked at David, who had gone still, his face empty as paper. We both knew without speaking that the night had one more thing to show us. The door at the top of the stairs creaked slowly open. A shadow moved in the doorway, and for a second I thought it was the ghost of everything we had done. Then the shadow stepped forward, and it was not a ghost. It was a person holding a phone with the screen bright as a small moon. "Lights," the shadow said softly. Who had come into our house in the middle of the night? What did they want? And what would that bright screen show? The figure in the doorway stepped forward and the bright screen made his face shine like a small sun. He was a young man, not very tall, with a crooked cap and a camera on a strap. His phone light cut through the smoky air and showed us everything. The torn curtains, the dark pictures, the black marks on the wall. He held the phone steady as if it were a sword. "Lights," he said again, but softer. Then he raised his phone so everyone could see the screen. On it was a video, moving and real. It was video of our living room earlier, of the curtains burning, of David with the bottle, of me running with the extinguisher. The little red dot in the corner of the screen blinked. He was recording right now. My heart dropped like a stone. "Who are you?" I whispered. He smiled without warmth. "Name's Kofi," he said. "I'm the one who filmed this. I saw the smoke and I filmed. People will watch. People will share." He tapped the screen, and the picture grew. "You should say something. People like drama." David jumped up as if a snake had bitten him. He rushed forward and tried to grab the phone. "Turn it off," he shouted. "Take that down." Kofi backed away but kept recording. "Why should I?" he asked. "This is big. A mother locked in a bathroom. A son almost burning the house down. People will watch. They will have feelings. They will click." I felt cold. I had never liked cameras. They felt like eyes that pressed into your chest and took out your secrets. Now those eyes had a video of the worst night of my life. I thought of the sale, the deed, the lawyer and the bank letter. I thought of how the moment I had wanted to teach my son a lesson could be shown to the whole world. "Kofi," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice small and steady. "Please. Please don't show this. We are family. We will fix this without making it worse." He watched my face like someone deciding if a coin was worth keeping. "People will want to know the truth," he said. "You should tell them. Right now." He pointed the phone at me. The red dot blinked. David lunged again. This time David's hand slapped the phone. Kofi's grip did not let go. The phone slipped from his hands and clattered to the floor. The screen cracked, spiderwebs racing across it like tiny lightning. Sparks of glass glittered in the smoke. "No," Kofi cried. He bent to pick it up, but before he could, my old neighbor Mr. Kofi, who was not the same young man, rushed in with two other neighbors. They saw the phone on the floor and the shards and they shouted, "Stop!" One of them said, "Stop this madness." The shouting made the house feel small and loud. David and Kofi pushed and pulled and swore. I stepped back, my legs feeling like jelly. I did not know what to do. My hands wanted to hold my son, to wrap him up and make him small and safe like when he was 5. But the memory of being locked in the bathroom made my fingers stay away. "You will ruin us." David screamed at the young man. "Do you know what you're doing? Do you know what that video can do?" Kofi shoved the phone screen toward David even though it was cracked. "I filmed it because people need to see," he said. "If you have a story, tell it now. If you try to hide, people will make the story for you." The neighbors argued. Some wanted the police. Some wanted to call the lawyer. I wanted the ground to open and swallow me. I wanted to hide. Then from upstairs there came a new sound. A slow creak like someone walking on old wood. We all froze. The house was tired and old. Every noise sounded like a warning. "Who's up there?" Mr. Kofi called. No answer. Only the soft creak again, and then a small frightened voice said, "Help please. Lily." My heart leaped. The same little girl who had run for her mother months ago. She must have been hiding in her favorite spot behind the curtains. How she had gotten upstairs I could not guess. But there she was, hurt and scared. "Lily," I cried. "Don't move." A moment later, a loud crack came from above like thunder from a small sky. Something heavy fell and a cloud of dust and plaster rained down into the hallway. The beam above the stairs let go with a sickening snap. A long dark shape, the old ceiling board, split and began to tilt. People shouted and ran. Someone grabbed the rope of the hanging bulb, and the light swung like a lantern at sea. I watched the ceiling split slower than a bad dream. My mouth was dry as sand. Then, before anyone could reach her, Lily's small shout turned into a single sharp cry. The ceiling board broke free and crashed down the stairs. The sound was like an axe in the dark. Dust filled the air, and the house seemed to convulse. When the dust cleared a little, I saw Lily lying on the stairs, small and still, a web of plaster across her hair. Her little legs were bent at odd angles and her lips were pale. "No!" I screamed. Time stopped like the moment before thunder. I ran and threw myself over her, my hands shaking as I pushed the plaster away. Her eyes fluttered. She was breathing, but thin. Blood spattered a little on the white dust. Her small hand reached for mine like a child reaching for a lifeline. "Someone call an ambulance." Mr. Kofi shouted. "Call now." Kofi, the young man with the broken phone, stood frozen, his face wide with fear and shame. He had filmed the first part of the night, but he had not filmed this. He did not know whether to help or to hide. David sank to the floor, his face white as a sheet, and put his head in his hands. "No," he mouthed, as if the word itself would change what had happened. Neighbors crowded. Voices rose and fell. Someone stripped their shirt to use as a bandage. Someone else ran for water. As I held Lily, feeling her small chest rise and fall, a new thought struck me with cold hands. This was my fault too. If I had not sold the house, had not pushed the war into daylight, had we all been quieter, would Lily be safe? Would the ceiling still be whole? Guilt pressed into me like a hungry animal. I cried and rocked, and tried to be useful while my mind turned to stone. The sound of sirens grew near. Someone outside said, "The police are coming back. The ambulance is here." I looked up when the ambulance lights painted the windows red and blue. People moved with purpose now. Paramedics in bright vests, hands steady, voices soft. They lifted Lily carefully onto a stretcher. She squeezed my finger quickly with small warmth, and then she was gone, rising toward the ambulance light like a small bird. As the ambulance doors closed, Kofi the young man bent to pick up his broken phone. He worked the cracked screen with hands that trembled. He tapped the phone and a small new message appeared. It was short like a knife. The screen read, "We have more. We will post tonight." My throat closed. The broken phone could not stop the words. The house behind me had been broken once by fire, now by falling wood, and now by something even harder, truth and judgment. David looked at me like a man lost at sea. His face was an island of regret. I had wanted to teach him a lesson, but I had not wanted this. Not a child hurt, not this much shame spread like spilled water. We stood in the smoky, dusty hallway as Lily's cries faded into the ambulance noise, and the neighbors drifted away in small groups, whispering. The house held its injuries like scars. Outside, the night did not know what to do with us. Inside, the phone glowed with a message from someone who had seen, and who could not be stopped. We had reached a new edge, no longer only our family fighting, but the whole small world watching us. The next step we took could save us, or it could finish us. And then, as if the night wanted one more surprise, the front gate creaked and the sound of many shoes came near. Men talked in low voices and one of them said a name I did not expect to hear. Bank. They had come at last, but who they were with and what they wanted, we did not know. I wish I could tell you that the story ended softly, that my son and I hugged, that Lily healed quickly, that the world forgave us. But life doesn't tie bows neatly. It leaves knots, scars, and lessons instead. Lily survived. Her little body was stronger than anyone thought. Weeks in the hospital made her parents cry, but she smiled through the pain and said, "Grandma saved me." Those words broke me in half and healed me at the same time. I had been trapped, I had been hurt, but somehow I had still saved someone. That was the first light in the long night. The video did go online. People watched, people judged, people whispered. Some called me cruel for selling my son's house. Some called David a monster for what he did to me. Some called us both broken. They weren't wrong. The world will always find names for your pain, but only you know the truth of it. The bank men came, and after months of lawyers and papers, the house was taken away anyway. Sold not for revenge this time but for debt. David lost it and I lost it too. We both walked away from those walls with nothing but memories of fire, smoke, and betrayal. But sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what cannot be sold. Forgiveness. It did not happen quickly. At first, I could not look at David without seeing the bathroom walls or the flames licking the curtains. He could not look at me without seeing the for sale sign. We avoided each other, spoke through silence, and carried shame like heavy stones. Then one day, he came to me, not as the man full of pride, not as the angry son, but as the boy who once brought me dandelions from the yard. He fell on his knees, tears soaking his hands, and said, "Mama, I need help." And I remembered that before he was my betrayer, he was my child. And a mother's love, though bent and battered, is hard to kill. I took his hands in mine. I said, We will heal, but healing takes time. And you must change, David. Truly change. He nodded, and in his eyes I saw something I had not seen in years: hope. Now when I look back, I see a house not made of bricks but of lessons. The first lesson: never let anger lead your steps, because it will always lead you off a cliff. The second lesson: silence in the face of cruelty only feeds the fire. Speak, act, protect yourself, even from those you love. And the last lesson: revenge feels sweet for a moment, but healing lasts forever. I sold my son's house out of pain. I thought destroying his pride would heal me, but it didn't. What healed me was standing up, surviving, and choosing not to let pain define me. So, my dear, if you ever feel trapped, whether in a bathroom, in a house, in a life you didn't choose, remember this: doors can be broken, houses can be sold, but hearts can rise again. And mine did. The story ends here, but the lesson walks on. Dove.